Welcome back to part 2 of the ranking players by position. Last video we did quarterbacks. This video is going to be the running backs. So we're going to do the top 10 running backs, and we are going to start with number 10, and we're going to start with Najee Harris from Pittsburgh Steelers. You could put a couple people here, I feel like. I just feel like Najee still has that 300 attempt per season workload, and he's in a young offense that is still trying to develop, so that allows for him to get more carries, especially with Kenny Pickett at quarterback. So we're going to still be able to see him be more of that workhorse back. Let's look at some of the stats for Najee Harris. Like I said, almost 300 attempts. He had 272 attempts, rushed for just over 1,000 yards, 3.8 yards per attempt. Rushing touchdowns were about 7. Receptions 41, receiving yards 229, and receiving touchdowns he had 3. So altogether he had 10 all touchdowns. So there's some things to point out here. For being a workhorse back in a young offense, I'd like to see him, especially with the caliber of player he is, I'd like to see his rushing yards be a little higher. Maybe be utilized more in the passing game, 229 yards receiving. I mean, I'm not expecting like Austin Eckler or Christian McCaffrey numbers when it comes to receiving, but with a young quarterback and young receivers and a young tight end, you'd think you'd see Najee Harris more involved in the passing game than what he was in the previous year. I think he was utilized more his rookie year. So, and the only thing that's alarming that people tend to talk about is how he's never had a season where he's averaged over 3.9 yards per attempt. So I'd like to see him make more of his rushing attempts than what he has been doing. But altogether, it's kind of hard not to put Najee at 10. I mean, he's a good running back, consistent, he's strong, athletic, power running. He's accountable. I mean, not in his personal life. I don't know his personal life, but is he accountable on the offense? I mean, he's not going to turn the ball over very much. You could have argued you could have put some other people in here. I mean, people are probably wanting like Bijan Robinson. Hard to put a rookie running back in. He hasn't even played a snap in the NFL yet. I mean, will Robinson be in here next year? I think so. I think he'll probably be ahead of some of these guys. But I'm going to stick with Najee at 10. So let's move to number 9. Aaron Jones for the Green Bay Packers. I think Aaron Jones is one of the more undervalued running backs in today's league. I think he also doesn't help splitting time with A.J. Dillon, losing carries on the goal line because of A.J. Dillon. But I just think not many people give Aaron Jones his flowers, and he deserves his flowers. He is a top-notch running back, great receiving running back. I mean, he's powerful. I mean, he's not afraid to lay the hit stick on some people. I like Aaron Jones. I mean, if we were talking fantasy football, which we're not, Aaron Jones was one of my favorite running backs for the past couple of years, and he's still going to be rated pretty highly in that regard too. But I like Aaron Jones at 9 here, ahead of Najee. Let's look at some stats for Aaron Jones here. 213 attempts, partially due to, like I said, A.J. Dillon being in the backfield and being utilized now more. Ran for over 1,100 yards. 5.3 yards per attempt, which is incredible. Rushing touchdowns, only 2, which is very alarming. But like I said earlier when I was talking about him, A.J. Dillon's going to take a lot of those goal line running situations because he's more of that physical running back. So 59 receptions, which is pretty good. Receiving yards just shy of 400, pretty good. And like he does his damage from receiving the ball, which like I said earlier, he's a top-notch receiving running back. He's no Christian McCaffrey. He's no Austin Eckler, but he might be third in regards to receiving backs. So that's why Aaron Jones is at number 9 for me. We're going to go on to number 8. Dalvin Cook, currently a free agent. I think he's way too talented for me not to put him in the top 10. Some people might not even have him in the top 10. Some might have him higher. Some might have him lower, maybe 9 or 10. I think Dalvin Cook still is better than Aaron Jones and Najee Harris. I think the lack of contract for him right now and not being on a team during training camp is due to him more than his ability. I mean, it has to be. I mean, he's top running back. His stats from last year were incredible. I mean, they were still productive. I think Dalvin Cook, any team he goes to, sounds like he might be going to either the Jets, the Dolphins, or the Patriots at the current moment. Not where I kind of wanted him to see, but I think any place he's going to go, he's going to thrive. It's going to be weird for him to go to any of those three teams. I mean, the Packers with Breece Hall, Michael Carter, I mean, adding a third running back. So it's basically see a Michael Carter. Why would you push Breece Hall, who's, I know he's coming off an injury, but he still could be a workhorse back for you, and then have Michael Carter off the bench? Miami, it makes the most sense with the lackluster running backs at the position. I mean, he'll definitely fit in there. I mean, and that offense would just be insane. And then New England, it seemed like they liked Ramondre Stevenson a lot, so it's just interesting to see him go there. Personally, I know they have Tony Pollard, but he's coming off a pretty serious injury, and he's only franchise tagged for this upcoming season. So I thought when him and Hopkins were trying to work out that thing for them to be this duo package to go somewhere, I thought the Cowboys would have been on the list for him and Hopkins to go to, but it doesn't look like either of them are going there. So let's look at some stats for Dalvin Cook. 264 rushing attempts, workhorse back, 3-down back. Just shy of 1,200 yards rushing, 4.4 yards per attempt, 8 rushing touchdowns, 39 receptions, almost 300 yards receiving, and then 2 receiving touchdowns. I mean, all in all, consistent back, makes the most of every attempt with 4.4 yards per carry, is able to put up points by himself, 8 rushing touchdowns, 39 receptions and 295 receiving yards. It's alarming. It's a little low for the ability that he has and the athletic ability that he shows running the football, but he's just not known as a receiving back. I mean, this is probably one of his best receiving years if I can recall correctly, but I just think Dalvin Cook, I mean, in the right system with the right team, he's going to shine just like he's shined in Minnesota for the years he's been there. So that's why I have Dalvin Cook at 8. Moving on to number 7, I have Austin Eckler. Now this one, he could be higher. I think he's kind of hard to put him higher than the other players I have above him. But I wouldn't argue with anybody if you saw Austin Eckler at 6, 5. I don't think 4, but 6 or 5. He could definitely be higher. I think he's emerged as one of the top running backs in the league, clearly. I mean, he's in my top 10. But, I mean, if we were talking fantasy, I mean, electric fantasy option for anybody to go to early on in someone's draft. But Austin Eckler, I think he can do it all. Great runner, great receiver, and he fits that system so well with Justin Herbert, and it's just fun to watch him on Sundays. So let's look at some stats for Austin Eckler. Only 204 attempts, but it's just shy of 1,000 yards, 4.5 yards per attempt, 13 rushing touchdowns. I mean, for a small guy in today's league against all these giants, him putting up 13 rushing touchdowns, I want to know how many of those were like inside the 5. I could see it being a pretty high number. So that's pretty impressive for the guy of his stature and for him to score 13 rushing touchdowns and for his body to hold up. And like I said, great receiver. I mean, he had 100 receptions. Usually see that out of wide receivers, and you sometimes don't even see that out of good wide receivers. I mean, he's a check down madness. I mean, you just throw it to him, let him run. I mean, he's fast. 722 receiving yards, just almost doing what Christian McCaffrey did a couple years ago with the 1,000. So, and then 5 receiving touchdowns. I mean, outside of Christian McCaffrey, he's got to be the second most dynamic running back in today's league. So that's why he's at least at 7. Like I said, could be higher, but that's just where I have him compared to the other running backs. So Austin Eckler at 7. All right, so number 6 on my list, Derrick Henry for the Tennessee Titans. He's definitely dropped off. If I had done this years prior, he's definitely dropped off a little bit from where he probably was a couple years ago. I think it's kind of hard for him with his stature, complete polar opposite of Austin Eckler, for him and his body to hold up. You kind of see the same stature in like a player like in the NBA, like Zion Williamson. It's just kind of hard for your body, especially in football, for your body to hold up being that size and running like he does and laying the hit stick on players like he does and taking hit after hit after hit. I mean, that he is the Tennessee Titans offense. Might be a little more revamped now with DeAndre Hopkins there, but he's still going to be the focal point of that offense. I mean, how could he not? Still an elite running back. Only reason I have him lower, I guess you could say lower, but at 6 is because I feel like he's slowly deteriorating. So that's why I have him a little lower than what some people might have him at, or he might be in the perfect spot at 6. But I question for his body to hold up for this coming year and years moving forward. So let's look at some stats for Derrick Henry. I mean, look, almost 350 rushing attempts. I mean, talk about a 3-down back, workhorse back, focal point of the offense. I mean, that's Derrick Henry. Basically 350 yards, or 350 attempts, my bad. Rushing yards just shy of 1,600. With all those attempts, and he's still able to put up 4.4 yards per attempt is outrageous. 13 rushing touchdowns. Majority of those I feel like have to be at the goal line. I mean, who's stopping him with 1 yard to go? 33 receptions. I feel like that's pretty high for Derrick Henry standards. Almost 400 receiving yards, also very high. And he's not known as a receiver. I mean, look at him. I mean, yeah, does he look like a tight end? Yes. But he's a running back. He's a power running back. So he's not going to have many receiving stats. But 33 receptions and almost 400 yards, it's pretty good for his standards. So Derrick Henry, like I said, still one of the top back in the league. I mean, he's hard to take down. You're not going to take him down easily. He's going to get his attempts, yards. He's going to get his in that offense. He's still a focal point. He's still decently young for a running back. So, I mean, he's still one of the top backs in the league. So, Derrick Henry at 6. Moving on to 5, we got Josh Jacobs. I doubt many people had Josh Jacobs at 5 or in the top 10 until last year, but he proved enough for me to put him at 5. He's one of the players you could probably bounce to 7, 8, 9, 10, just because maybe it was a fluke year, contract year. So I think Josh Jacobs at 5, seeing his ability last year, more than enough evidence for me to put him at 5. So Josh Jacobs, 5, some stats from last year. Right around the Derrick Henry attempts number, 340, 9 short of D. Henny. Ran for almost 1,700 yards, 5 yards per attempt. I mean, that's insane. For 340 attempts, for him to consistently get you almost 5 yards for every time he touched the football, I mean, that's incredible. 12 rushing touchdowns. I mean, you crack 8 rushing touchdowns, that's a good year in my opinion. Especially in today's league, that's a great year. 53 receptions, 400 yards. Showed glimpses of him to attack through the air, so that's good. I mean, that's going to be good for the Raiders going forward if they can get some kind of deal done for him to ensure that he plays this coming season with Jimmy G and Devontae Adams. I mean, they're going to need Josh Jacobs on the field. So, but receiving touchdowns, 0. He's just like Derrick Henry. You're not going to see him doing Austin Eckler, Christian McCaffrey things out of the backfields. But like I said, those stats from last year that you're seeing right now, easily enough evidence for me to put him at 5, for me at least. But, yep, Josh Jacobs at 5. Let's go to 4. We got Jonathan Taylor, my running back. I swear it's not biased. I just think he is outstanding running back. Another running back that's not very lethal through the air or with the passing game. But it doesn't matter. I mean, this guy has it all. Vision, speed, agility, ability to lower the shoulder onto people. I mean, he does it all for the Colts. He is a Derrick Henry for the Colts. He's a focal point of the offense, at least for the past couple years with the lackluster and carousel of quarterbacks coming through. I mean, you have to turn to somebody, and JT has done that for the Colts. And it's kind of scary being a Colts fan, thinking about losing him, but at the same time, it's kind of where we are in today's league with the running back position. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to do what's going to best fit your cap and moving forward, especially with a young team and a lot of promise with that young team. So, they want to probably make moves to enhance somewhere else if they have to. And in today's league, you can't afford to pay running backs $15 million a year or whatever these running backs are wanting these days. But enough about that. That's for another time. Jonathan Taylor at 4, like I said, vision, agility, power, speed. He has it all, and he's proven it for the past, 2 or 3 years he's been in the league. I mean, Colts second quickest to reach 3,000 yards rushing, just shy of Edgerrin James. I mean, he's with elite company. I mean, Edgerrin James is a Hall of Famer, so for him to be right there with Edge, that shows a lot of promise and a lot of greatness out of JT. So let's look at some stats for JT. Now, don't necessarily, I know we looked at the stats solely basically for last year to grade Josh Jacobs, but you can't look at it for JT. I won't let you. You can harp on me, call me a hypocrite or whatever, but JT battled through injury all year, but he's one of those players that, like, you know what he's going to perform or what he's going to bring to the field every game when he's out there fully healthy. Josh Jacobs, maybe he was just, I mean, he played behind a bad O-line for a couple of years, so he just needed a chance to shine. But JT at 4. So let's look at some stats. Like I said, skewed a little bit. 192 attempts, not even close to what his production level is. Still almost hit 1,000 yards rushing, 4.5 yards per attempt. So in those games he was playing and those attempts he was getting, he was still making the most out of those attempts. And I'm sure he played through games injured. So 4.5 yards per attempt, 4 rushing touchdowns, 28 receptions, 143 receiving yards, and 0 receiving touchdowns. He's just one of those running backs that's just not going to kill you through the air. You know that, and that's why we had Nyheim Hines all those years, and we've brought in guys to help with the passing attack through the backfield. So JT at 4. Moving on to number 3, we got Nick Chubb. So Nick Chubb at 3 was pretty easy for me. I think he, based off the name itself, running back, he's probably the best running back in the league, meaning, I mean, he's consistent. I mean, he's probably the most consistent running back in the league still. His ability to run the ball, outstanding, make guys miss. His production level through running the ball with his yardage is insane. Ability to point at points, get in the end zone for him is insane. He just can do it all. And the best part about Nick Chubb is you know what you're going to get on a week in and week out basis. Or every year you're going to know what you're going to get. You're going to get 1,500 yards rushing every year. You're going to get like 10 touchdowns every year. I mean, he does it all for the Browns. He's another running back in today's league that is a focal point of the offense. But just like Jonathan Taylor and, Derrick Henry and all these other guys, they're true running backs. They're not going to kill you through the air. Nick Chubb is not going to kill you through the air, hence why they had Kareem Hunt in the backfield to split time with. Kind of interesting to see what they do this year, not re-signing Kareem Hunt. Maybe he will be utilized more in the passing game with Deshaun Watson this year. So interesting to see what that offense is going to look like with Deshaun Watson and Nick Chubb back there. I think it's going to be lethal if Watson can perform well. Like I said in the last video, it's all on Watson. So Nick Chubb at 3, like I said, easily number 3. Let's look at some stats from last year. 300 attempts. Not getting that attempts that you'll see Josh Jacobs have or Derrick Henry had, but 300 attempts, that's plenty of attempts for him. Like I said, 1,500 yards rushing, 5 yards per attempt, consistent, makes the most out of every attempt. 12 rushing touchdowns, like I said. I mean, I said 10, but 12. But then here we go. 27 receptions, 239 yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. It's hard to talk about running backs because, I mean, especially if you play fantasy football, what do you look in a running back, especially in a PPR league? The ability to make catches out in the backfield. But it kind of shadows what a running back is and who they are, and it kind of like throws off their value a little bit because of the league is so pass happy that you want that receiving back that can check it down to and make plays in the open field or get you 5 yards or break out one on a screen play. But if you have a guy like Nick Chubb, JT, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs who can stick it between the tackles and still get you 5 yards every time, I mean, you're not going to complain. So That's Nick Chubb at 3. That's the stats. Great running back, probably the best running back in the league. So on to number 2, Saquon Barkley. A lot of people are talking about Saquon Barkley, and I think it's for the wrong reasons as of late, but nothing is going to shadow or hide his ability as a running back or what he does on a week in and week out basis for that team. Another running back on this list that is a focal point of the offense. So Saquon Barkley, there's not much you can say about Saquon that no one already knows. Like I said, number 2 running back, no doubt number 2. I mean, you can't put him anywhere else, in my opinion. So let's look at some stats for Saquon. Just shy of 300 attempts, 295, 1,300 yards rushing, 4.4 yards per attempt, 10 rushing touchdowns, 57 receptions, 338 receiving yards, but 0 receiving touchdowns. When I was looking up the stats for Saquon, I think his receiving numbers were a little eyebrow-raising. I thought he did more catching the ball last year than what the facts say. But Saquon Barkley, elite, lethal running back. I mean, he is the team. He is Derrick Henry for the Titans. I mean, he is the team. The offense runs through Saquon. It does not run through Danny Dimes. It runs through Saquon. He is their team right now. Can it change here this year or next year? Probably. I mean, a lot of contract question marks for Saquon. So, but easily Saquon, number 2 running back in the league. And lastly, to round out the top 10 running back lists, we have no other than Christian McCaffrey. Run CMC, as they say. Christian McCaffrey, easily, in my opinion, probably number 1. You could probably put Saquon or Nick Chubb maybe up there if you really wanted to. But I think Christian McCaffrey and how dynamic he is in the backfield, it gives him a slight edge over these other running backs. His ability to do it through the air and the ground. A couple of years ago, he put up 1,000 rushing yards, 1,000 receiving yards, easily probably one of the best performances in a season by a running back. So Christian McCaffrey is my number 1. So let's look at some stats from last year. 244 attempts, seems a little low, but it's understandable. Rushing yards, 1,100, almost 1,200 yards rushing, 4.7 yards per attempt. 8 rushing touchdowns, 52 receptions, 464 receiving yards, and 4 receiving touchdowns. I feel like his receiving numbers are a little lower than I anticipated when I was going through the stats for him, but it's no big deal. I mean, maybe this offseason going forward into the season, the 49ers will find a way to utilize him more dynamically that fits his ability. He's going to be interesting to see in that offense. I mean, that offense is fun to watch. You got Deebo Samuel, who can do it all. Christian McCaffrey, who can do it all. And a young Brandon Ayuk. I mean, this team's going to be fun to watch, especially with Christian McCaffrey. He's fun to watch on any Sunday, no matter whose backfield he's in. So Christian McCaffrey at number 1. And that's going to do it for my running back list. Here it is again if you didn't see. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones, and Najee Harris. But like I said, that's going to do it for the running backs in the top 10 order. Next, we'll be doing the wide receivers. So until next time, drop a comment in the below. Give me your top 10 running backs. Give me some feedback on what I should be doing better or what suggestions you have moving forward for me so I can make better content for you guys. So until next time.